ReZero Season 3 just wrapped up, and I thought to celebrate, why don't we talk about every arc in ReZero? This includes Season 1, or Arcs 1 through 3, Season 2, or Arc 4, Season 3, or Arc 5, as well as future arcs like Season 4 or Arc 6, as well as Arc 7, 8, and 9. I will put a spoiler warning before I talk about non-anime only friendly content, so don't worry. Let's get to the bottom of some things. Is Arc 6 overrated? Is Arc 7 overhated? Let's find out. When I do these tier lists, like on stream, I always try to discuss my rating criteria because it's not going to be universal for everyone. S rank is where the peak ranks will go, the best of the best, the apogee of creativity. A rank are the great arcs, these are fantastic, very good stuff. B rank is good, I enjoyed them. Whether it's just because they have some flaws or I didn't enjoy them as much as other arcs, they're still good though. C rank is our category, D rank is bad, and F rank is ass. However, I won't be using those three in this video, so. Starting with Arc 1, this is our introductory arc, and to be honest, there have been few intro arcs as good as this one to me. Usually, starting arcs don't really grip me that much, especially as series fumble around and try to find their footing, which definitely has its charm to some extent, but Arc 1 had me gripped immediately. It's a really strong opening arc, establishing a lot about our world, giving us some core characteristics of our protagonist, Emilia, as well as introducing characters that will play a big role for a long time, like Elsa and Reinhard. There are moments in Arc 1 that you can really only fully appreciate on a rewatch or a reread because they show just how much thought Tappei put into some of the story. I've always loved the dialogue between Subaru and Reinhard, and how Reinhard talks about the feelings of familial expectations crushing him, and Subaru's reaction to that, which hits much harder after all we've been through. Arc 1 is a high B tier arc. I know I just glazed it here, but it's not the most powerful arc in the series. It's just a great introduction, and I can always keep it in the back of my mind that Tappei calls this the most important arc of the story. Arc 2 is, well, even better than Arc 1. It introduces a lot of dynamics that have a lot of very powerful staying power, like Rem and Ram, or Anybody and Roswell, or Subaru and Emilia, and so on and so forth. I think this arc does a lot for Subaru, who is my favorite character, not just in ReZero, but in fiction in general, like displaying some of his more toxic traits, his controlling attitude, his dehumanization of others, and his generally rude comments to people like Rem and Ram, while still also showing off his good qualities like his desire to reach out and save Rem, or the extremely powerful cliff jump scene that is a highlight of Season 1. Subaru's dynamic with Rem is also very strong in this arc, and it's obviously one of the focal points of it. And while they share positive moments, Tappei does a really interesting thing where he creates this dynamic that, on the surface, seems good and healthy, but actually has a much more sinister approach to it. I don't know if sinister is the right word, but you get what I mean. It ultimately informs a lot of character flaws going forward. Arc 2 is a top of B arc, very close to A, but considering the competition, I have a hard time putting it higher than that. Arc 3. Arc 3 is one of the best arcs ever created, period. Subaru's characterization of this arc is phenomenal, from his cocky, overconfident attitude being ripped down, to him hitting his rock bottom, to rising to the occasion to prove that he can be better. Rem's character is phenomenal, serving as a mirror that reflects back Subaru's toxic and obsessive love right back at him. The introduction of all the knights that really foils some of Subaru's character traits, something I touched on in another video. We have fantastic setup for characters like Julius, Wilhelm, Anastasia, Krush, God rest her soul, Ferris, and more. We have an incredibly strong and iconic antagonist in Betelgeuse, someone with so much staying power he's still relevant even many arcs after his death, not just in the story but even in the reader's minds, being another reflection of Subaru's obsession as he chases after Satella and feels entitled to her love. Arc 3 shows off some of ReZero's most iconic moments, something the anime also does a great job of adapting, like Subaru's Episode 13 Meltdown, or his Episode 15 Death, or Episode 18 in its entirety. This arc is Subaru's character completely unraveling to tell us explicitly that all of Subaru's character flaws were intentional and not the result of random isekai slop, and all of them would come back to bite him. An incredible arc that also excellently segues us into the next arc, as we also face our first major status quo change at the end of this arc, where the character that was acting as Subaru's fundamental rock throughout the trials of Arc 3, Rem, has now been impacted by gluttony. Arc 3 is fantastic and sits firmly in the S tier. Also, Aldebaran was introduced, how can it be bad? Arc 4 is one of the best arcs ever created, and honestly serves as a capstone for me because in my mind there are 3 sections or acts of ReZero. Arcs 1 through 4, Arcs 5 through 8, and Arcs 9 through 12. This could end up being proven wrong since 10, 11, 12 don't exist yet, but in my all-powerful mind palace, Arc 4 is the end of ReZero Act 1, and what a phenomenal job it does with that. It feels like a send-off for everything we just experienced. We get the first focus on Ram, who to a lot of people might have been living in her sister's shadow, ironically enough a relevant plot point. We get to see more of our dynamics and character, especially with Roswell, also, who I feel sat in this very weird position pre-Arc 4 because it was definitely very sketchy, and in this arc he gets to come into his own as one of ReZero's greatest antagonists still to this day. The way he wonderfully mirrors Subaru's flaws, foiling him in a way that really helps finalize Subaru's Act 1 development and progression, as we finally get a look into the past for the first time and see how he might have turned out this way, and finally tackle how the only thing he feels he offers to his loved ones is his own death. This is also a big arc for Emilia, who to a lot of people didn't really get up to much until now, and I think that's a fair comment. Arc 4 Emilia is one that really brandishes her character flaws as well, and dives very much into the kind of person she is, how she struggles with her own autonomy, immaturity, and such. We of course also bring back characters that were important earlier in the act, like Elsa and Melee, or even Otto, who serves a big role in this arc, and quickly became a fan favorite. I don't want to get too deep into these arcs in this video because at some point I plan to make a retrospective, just like my My Hero Academia videos from a while ago, where I'll get into the little details of the story. I guess you could take that as an official announcement of that. There will be a ReZero retrospective on this channel eventually, so I'll finish it off here, but Arc 4 also serves as ReZero's first gigantic scope increase, with Echidna, the witches, lots of lore, locations, and so on and so forth. ReZero gets a lot bigger with Arc 4, and I think it was fantastic. Betty also became one of my favorite characters in ReZero here, but I'll touch more on her another time. Arc 4 gets a top of S tier placement. Arc 5 sits in a really interesting place in the fandom because I feel like it's either people's favorite arc or one of their least favorite. Personally, I don't agree with either. I think it's just a pretty great arc. I often refer to it as a benchmark arc because we get the benchmark of these characters as we head into Act 2, showing how they've grown or changed and telling us what direction they'll end up going in. I think it's great, and a wonderful follow-up to Arc 4, but personally, it's not as thematically resonant to me. It doesn't move me as much as the previous story arcs. I think Regulus, Sirius, Capella, and the Gluttonies are all wonderful antagonists. Subaru's speech is still one of my favorite ReZero moments. Aldebaran became a favorite of mine during this arc. We get a fascinating direction for the vain knight Julius, Subaru gets pushed on the path of heroism, and so much more. I think my only real complaint with this arc is the amount of time it spends floundering. Volume 16 isn't that good, with a lot of sore spots for me, despite some really cool and good character interaction. This volume really soured over time for me, which honestly, episode 1 of Season 3 helps with a lot. There's also a lot of what feels like dead air in the middle portions of the arc before the final fights actually get started. Arc 5 is a solid top of A arc, though. Now, anime-onlys, you are not safe. We're going to push into Season 4 territory. If you don't want to get spoiled, now's your time to dip out. If you are an anime-only and just don't care about spoilers, hello, I guess. Arc 6 is one of the best arcs ever made. It's what some people would consider a return to form for ReZero after its battle-centric Arc 5, as we get right back into the character drama and mystery of Arcs 3 and 4. Of course, a primary standout here is Natsuki Subaru, who further cements himself as the greatest of all time with his 2.5 volume stint as what I call him, Nubaru. It's a wonderful way for him to view himself from a different perspective, to see the accomplishments of Natsuki Subaru and to feel othered by that, as the hell of bearing the name of oneself really digs into him. Melee also becomes a pretty great character in this arc, a kid who was never given the proper tools to deal with her grief and as a result ends up lashing out at those around her because she simply doesn't know how to handle it. Julius, someone who can be seen as excessively vain, having to deal with the fact that nobody knows who he is and his accomplishments no longer have any meaning, and also has a lot to tackle in this arc. He's forced to start, well, from zero, and reforge the relationships he had along the way, and I think that's really intriguing. Personally, the two things that fell flat for me in Arc 6 that make me hesitate putting it above Arc 4 like everyone else are Shala and Aridna. Aridna and Anastasia's plotline fell sort of flat as it ends up just ending unceremoniously, and doesn't really leave much of an impact, and personally, Shala was not a very compelling character to me whatsoever. I liked her final chapter quite a bit, but her general attitude, her contributions to the plot, and being just kind of a worse Beatrice didn't really impress me, especially since there is more value in her death than her as a character. Arc 6 is an S-tier arc, but just doesn't beat out Arc 4 for me. Now this is where we get into the real controversy, Arc 7. Even anime-onlys might know about this arc because of the amount of hate this arc gets, and I'll be honest, it's gas. There's a lot of experimental stuff in here, and to be frank, some of it doesn't work. However, when it does work, it's fantastic. I spoke about how Arc 4 is a massive scope increase for the series. Well, Arc 7, and by extension the Valachian saga at large, one-ups it by having an even more significant scope increase, which is where I think this arc flops for a lot of people, but personally, I loved it. I think Subaru has some very unique characterization in this arc, and Natsumi serves to this day as ReZero's second litmus test, the first being episode 13. A lot of people perceive Natsumi and Kid Subaru to be gags and refuse to engage with it critically, whether it be because, Subaru isn't raw, or they have ideological blinders on and refuse to accept the character they self-insert into jumps at the chance to put on a dress. The Valachian cast is also very good. Todd, Vincent, Yorna, Tarita, all being strong standouts. Wallachia itself is also personally a lot more interesting than the kind of standard European fantasy setting of Lagunica. The customs, the culture, and the history are all really interesting to learn about to me. Arc 7's bit of main experimentation that I really enjoyed was taking Subaru out of the story. It's the first time we get volumes of basically no Subaru. He's not in Phase 5, and he's not really in Phase 7, but the foundation Tappei laid out works so well that I'm still pretty invested. Arc 7's main flaw is its length, because it didn't really have to be this long. This is the time where Top 8 starts to really hit deadlines, and you can tell, as he begins to repeat himself ad nauseum about particular things, very repetitive prose, circular dialogue or narration, and lots of nothing going on. That's really Arc 7's biggest flaw, and it's in a lot of places in this arc, and it really hurts the readability, and because of tight deadlines, the light novel doesn't do a much better job with it either. The common complaint is that this is a detour arc, and some claim that's because there's no witch cult presence or witch influence, which is just wrong. Ignoring Rui's presence, Sphinx is also the antagonist who is directly linked to Echidna, and Aldebaran gets a lot of explicit lore drops, who is also one of the biggest mysteries in the story. Not to mention we hear about Stargazers, who play a lot into the main themes of the series and how mysterious they are. Arc 7 has a lot of world building and mystery that a lot of people should enjoy, but I guess the lack of Amelia Camp really impacts it for a lot of people as well. Arc 7 is an A-tier arc. The community sentiment is that Arc 7 is bad, but I enjoyed it a lot. The community sentiment is that Arc 8 is fantastic, and well, I think this might be the most flawed arc in ReZero. Let's start with the positives. I think Arc 8 has some of ReZero's strongest character writing with Phase 1. Subaru's dynamic with Vincent and Todd is both fucking fantastic, and we get some excellent conclusions there. And Arc 8 also has some of the most hype and grandiose scenes of ReZero, with these battles having insanely cool set pieces and some narrative setup. We have some great characterization for Cecilis, Sphinx, Subaru, Priscilla, and Aldebaran. It's got fantastic moments. What it doesn't have is very satisfying payoffs for a lot of setup from Arc 7 and Valikia in general. Sphinx was an antagonist built up for years in side material, just to kind of come and go and not leave the greatest impression on a lot of people. Kid Subaru really overstayed its welcome, though I think it also had some great moments, and it kind of just unceremoniously ends even though it's relevant to beating Sphinx. Vincent, despite having the arc named after him, doesn't really do all that much besides become a super soldier with the Yang Sword, a reveal that is also very unceremonious. Yorna, Arakia, Yogurt, Balray, Flop, Medium, maybe some other characters I'm forgetting from that list there, all had very lackluster conclusions that did not befit the presence they should have had, and especially a lot of their connections with Priscilla. Yorna becomes a Yogurt machine and makes me lose most of the interest I had in her, and has no real reaction to her daughter dying. Yogurt being a relatively uninteresting genocidal maniac I'm supposed to be friends with, Arakia loses everything and doesn't get a conclusion, Balray has zero interaction with Julius and doesn't do much in the arc before flying into the sky and exploding. Flop goes against his characterization and sells his sister to the Emperor, and Medium doesn't really get to do much besides fight Balray a bit and then watch him explode. Arc 8 just didn't live up to what it could have been, and didn't utilize the cast in the way it could have, as it felt Top 8 just really wanted to get out of Valikia, and contrary to community sentiment, I wanted more time in Valikia for Top 8 to finish resolving and working with these characters. Arc 8 has a lot of fun moments, but is the most flawed ReZero arc in my eyes, with a lot of missed potential, so it's going to be placed at a strong B. I don't hate this arc by any means, but damn, it missed the mark big time. So obviously, Arc 9 isn't done yet, so this placement is going to be very tentative. Arc 9 is fucking incredible so far, genuine top 1 potential, but people also thought that after the first phase of Arc 8. Now, let's talk about the negatives first, because there's less to say. Arc 9 Phase 1's first half has some of the worst ReZero content out there, to be honest. It continues the trend of very unsatisfying conclusions from Arc 8, giving characters absolutely nothing, or in the event of Katya, a very dubious conclusion where she reunites with Todd and frames it as a good thing, as if they didn't have an abusive relationship. We get, in a lot of cases, a very underbaked reaction to Priscilla. Additionally, we're not granted any introspection from Subaru on his time as a kid. However, the rest of the phase leads me to believe this is intentional, so we'll put a pin in that for now. Every character just kind of feels like they're ushering along the plotline, rather than reacting to the major events of Valikia's conclusion, so that we can get back to Pleiades, and when we do get back to Pleiades, it's fucking peak. Aldebaran's turn into an antagonist is incredibly powerful, and his 1v2 fight against Ezra and Garfield might be one of my favorite ReZero fights of all time. Top 8 absolutely locks in on some incredible prose here, and he hammers home why Aldebaran is one of my favorite ReZero characters. I mentioned before that Arcs 1 through 4 serve as ReZero's first act, 5 through 8 are its second, and I think it's pretty clear that Arc 9 kicks off the third and final act, as we get series-defining moments like Subaru being sealed, Aldebaran becoming a bad guy, him taking over Volcanica, Petra reading Subaru's book, the Witch of Envy being unleashed upon the sand dunes, and these are things that can't just be undone, hopefully. There's a nationwide manhunt for Aldebaran, and now he has unleashed the Sinner's Bit of Gluttony, so who the fuck knows what's going to happen now. It's hard to evaluate because it's not over, but Aldebaran's characterization is incredible, Petra's lined up for some fantastic content, Ram and the Alleyway Trio get some great stuff, surprisingly, Heinkel is lined up for something great, and Ye serves as a fascinating role in this arc. Arc 9 fucking rules, and so far outside of the first half of Phase 1 anyway, but everything else more than makes up for it. Arc 9 could genuinely go down as the greatest arc in ReZero, especially with how it could end. Garkar and I have talked a lot about these ideas, like Subaru asking for Aldebaran's real name like he did to Amelia in Arc 1, or what Amelia did to the wives in Arc 5, or for Subaru in Arc 6. How Aldebaran could say the words, "You really are an amazing guy, Natsuki Subaru," as he gets saved by him. Arc 9 is a high A tier arc at the moment. And those are my abridged thoughts on the ReZero arcs and where they place. This is all just my opinion, so if you disagree, that's fine, except it isn't because I'm correct. Like I said earlier, just like the MHA videos I used to make, I plan on making extensive deep dives into every single arc eventually as a ReZero retrospective, something I think I'll start when Arc 10 starts. They'll be broken up into the structure I spoke about in this video: Act 1 aka Arcs 1 through 4, Act 2 aka Arcs 5 through 8, and Act 3 Arcs 9 through 12. Let me know what you guys agree or disagree with on this ranking, and thanks for watching. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Graphia with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.